You have a normal size head. I do not have a normal size head.
But I feel like it's proportionate to the rest of you.
I don't know how to take that.
But your head does not look like it doesn't fit on your body.
Again,
all right, let's just.
We're not winning. We're not winning.
We're not.
Yeah, let me run this at you. I actually own a camper now.
You bought a camper?
I did, yes. And we went camping this weekend for one night at a campground in Surfside Beach.
Congratulations! Yeah. You drove down from one night all the way to Surfside.
Well, we had to go get the camper, which was down there anyway.
Okay.
And we're storing it at Ocean Lakes.
Now, is your wife, is she on board with this? Like
Well, that was the big question, was, is she going to like it? Because she's claustrophobic. Bless her heart. Wonderful lady that I'm married to. I hope she sees this. But I was worried about that. She's not. Everything was fine. She enjoyed it. So going back.
You got you next
this weekend.
Oh, you got her back?
Yeah.
Well, you did good. Well, congratulations. That's going to be fun.
Thank you.
You got any spots you really want to see?
Not really.
What's on your bucket list?
We're going to store it down there. We love the beach, so we're going to store it at Ocean Lakes, and hopefully that'll be a sponsor for us, Ocean Lakes.
Oh, you know what? I spent some time. I was down on the coast this weekend too. Got to see a lot of the water from Myrtle Beach all the way down to Beaufort, South Carolina. And I came back. I was telling my wife on the way home, I said, we take for granted how beautiful it is here in the Carolinas.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got some beautiful, and this is not an ad. I'm not trying to get people to move to the Carolinas right now. That's not what's going on. But I just, I've seen the Rockies, I've seen the Alps. There's nothing more beautiful than the Smoky Mountains.
Oh, absolutely.
And low country South Carolina, and that is just
Myrtle's
gorgeous.
Inlet down there, man. I'm telling you, it's beautiful down there. You can see.
There's not a lot of dirt down there, though. Rich.
No, there's not a lot of dirt. A lot of silt.
Yeah, I imagine the grading business is a lot different down there.
Probably so.
The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, powered by Hoopaugh Grading Company. I am Brandon. This is Bam Bam, and we are your hosts. All right, we're excited to have Austin Conti, the CEO of Tenna, as our guest today. Tenna is a construction technology platform that revolutionizes equipment fleet operations using state-of-the-art integrated GPS tracking, cellular, Bluetooth, and QR technologies to ensure your entire mixed fleet is accounted for. Austin and his team are reshaping the construction and asset management industry through innovation, sustainability, and cutting-edge technology. What's cool about this particular story is that Austin is not a tech guy that found a market in construction. He's a construction guy that found a need for the tech. And I love this line that I found on his website. It says, "We experienced your challenges firsthand, which is why we built Tenna." Austin's career in the construction industry has led him to his current role as CEO and co-founder of Tenna. Austin, welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me here.
Good morning. Good to see you. So did we get that intro right?
Yeah, you guys said it better than I did. So that was good, great. Yeah. That was really good. Yeah.
That's awesome. So have you listened to the podcast?
I have, yeah. Yep.
You got a favorite episode? Anything with Bam Bam in it?
Anything that Bam Bam said, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, we definitely.
I watched the one on Carolina Cat the other day about technology that was relevant to what we're doing, so that was great. I believe Michael was on. Yeah.
Now, you partner with them.
We do. We're working with Carolina Cat, so very excited on that.
Well, I'm excited to dive into it and find out what's going on. But before we dive into Tenna and everything that you're doing on that side of it, which is absolutely fascinating, I want our listeners to know a little bit more about your story.
Okay.
So you started in the construction side of things. Tell me about that. When did you first get your first experience in the dirt world?
Sure. So my family's been in construction for over 100 years. So my great-grandfather, Tony Conti, started a company in 1906. So I guess my first experience was just playing with toys in the dirt, right? So I grew up in the industry doing stonemason work as a kid, but absolutely loving the action of construction. So always did work, during high school, And then after college, really dived right into business, doing different types of work, whether that's project development or estimating. I personally loved working as an assistant super, probably the most, just because of the action in the field. And just kind of worked all around the country and actually some different parts in the world. So very fortunate to experience a lot in construction at a pretty young age.
What an experience.
Yeah.
Did you have a choice? Was this
Yeah.
so you chose construction, or was it just, hey, my family's been doing this since 1906.
Yep.
I'm going in line.
I think I chose working with my family, and we were working in construction, right? So I had a great relationship with my father and a lot of people in the business, and I think when that works out well, it works out beautifully, right? So was excited to kind of jump in and be part of it.
That's really cool. What kind of so I did the same thing. My dad worked for APAC when I was growing up. And so every high school summer, every college summer, I was on the crew. I was doing something. Now, I'm going to talk to him because I never got to be an assistant superintendent or PM or estimator. I was usually on jackhammer or flagman.
Flagman, yeah.
But it was a great experience. What kind of projects did you work on? Do you remember any?
Yeah, so I guess more summers or just more stonemason projects we would do. But really after college, it was bridge and road work. Actually in the Carolinas here, I worked on a project in Beaufort. I was corrected. I'm sorry, Beaufort, not Beaufort.
Yeah,
right? I was corrected multiple times.
Beaufort is north. Do you know this?
I call it Beaufort.
Beaufort is South Carolina.
But that's where I'm from. That's Beaufort with a D.
Oh, that's another. I don't even know that.
So I was confused too.
I don't know that place.
But
Beaufort near Morehead City. I got to work on a bridge project there, which is a beautiful beach town, like you're saying about the Carolina. It was absolutely gorgeous there. And then also Fayetteville. So worked on the military bases doing work there.
Did in your story you referenced working on a big project, and was that one of your jobs here in the Carolinas?
Yep.
And if you're able to tell us anything about the scope and size of that project, because Conti does some very large projects.
Yep.
And so tell me a little bit, just so we can understand the scope and size of that project that you were working on.
Sure. Maybe I'll take a step back on what type of work we do.
Yeah.
So Conti is a civil company and doing lots of bridge and road work up and down the Northeast and in the Carolinas. A lot of our business is federal work. And then we did some also abroad work in West Africa. We did some work and also other places in Israel and around the world. So the projects I worked on in Fayetteville was about, now it's 9 years ago here, so around, I think it was seven bridges we were working on there. And then in Beaufort was a single bridge connecting Radio Island and Morehead City.
Wow.
So, yep.
How large? How many people did you have on site? How many pieces of equipment did you have on site?
So for the project in Beaufort, probably over 75 pieces of equipment at least. Some big cranes on that job because you're doing work over the water, and we're also building a trestle, so a temporary bridge for it. So a lot of action moving, a lot of road work.
In a pretty confined space.
Yep.
And so the reason I'm asking, you probably know where I'm going with this, because part of your story was while you were there on that project, you identified a problem, an issue that you were facing there on the job, but an issue that probably a lot of us in the construction world have faced at some time. And can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it was actually an issue that was happening across two jobs and how we were going to allocate of our equipment, especially with the purchase of rent-to-purchase options of cranes from looking at our project in Beaufort, and then also in Fayetteville. So how are we going to allocate this equipment? Where was the equipment around the country? How can we best maximize that? So that was kind of one of the initial challenges I think every construction company goes through is how can you move things the right way, and then where is all this stuff around the country, because it, as you guys know, it adds up really quick.
Now, so keeping up with that kind of a fleet when it's spread out across the country, I can't understand that. I mean, we work within a 65-mile radius of Charlotte, and we can't. It's hard to keep up with it here. So managing those resources across that kind of footprint is massive.
Sure.
So you're out there on the job. you're in Beaufort and you're trying to get this project done and you don't know where equipment is, or you're needing something that you don't have. Practically, what was the challenge there with the equipment and locating it?
Yeah, so actually the challenge, so it really comes to the origin story of Tenna, was on the equipment but also the materials, because we were looking to source really for this trestle all this excess steel around the country, and it was a change, right, in the bid. So we were calling different places around the U.S. of like, okay, what steel do you have lying around so we can put this thing together? And from that almost problem was, okay, could there be a marketplace for excess things that are basically excess assets are in everybody's yard, right? So a lot of contractors, from my experience, don't even know where 20% of their things are. So what is all that uncovered value we can, find? So it's through that story of almost the trestle, came up with the idea for Tenna, which was originally kind of a marketplace in some ways, but when I went around and tested that marketplace, the first answer was like, great idea, we don't even know what we have. So the bigger problem seemed to be actually asset management versus just trying to liquidate and move your assets.
Well, that's a great point, because I think, and maybe it's just me, but do you run into people that automatically think, all right, we're talking about fleet management, but you're talking about materials now and keeping up with all kinds of...
Like if you think about how many buckets are left in the weeds around the country, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars just, and it's not because contractors aren't working super hard and trying really hard. And naturally, we're a very organized and disciplined industry. That's why we can do what we can do. It's just there's so much going on every day. Sometimes things get missed, right? And can any technology, whether it's what we do or any applications out there, just bring that data in the forefront and help a bit? I think that makes a huge difference on margin for projects and general operations. So.
And profit margins as well, probably.
Yep.
Bam Bam, do you think we run into that?
It could, yes.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out where things are that are needed on other job sites that may or may not, especially with the supply chain issues that we had a couple of years ago. I could imagine that would come in clutch for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just the lost assets. It's like the missed move. Okay, did you not get productivity that day because that hammer was missing, right? The cost of the crew, everything, at least in our business, compounds, right? It compounds in two steps that go wrong. So if you can spend more time pre-planning, the better, So.
Absolutely. Well, we've kind of teed it up already a little bit. Tell us about Tenna. What is Tenna? What do you do?
So you said it actually beautifully, but Tenna is an equipment fleet management platform focused on the construction industry. So GPS or asset location and monitoring is not new, but because of my background and experience and my co-founders, Jose's, we just laser focus on solving really asset management for the self-performing contractor. What that means is there's lots of different things out there. So depending on the size and value of the asset, whether that's a trench box, a road plate, a bucket, a PC400, a dozer, or a crane, we can apply different technology to get data off that so you can help optimize the operations. So we impact the equipment manager, the mechanics, head of ops, CFO, ownership when you're trying to what you're going to buy next, and really look at things holistically on how machines are talking to you versus calling someone up and saying, hey, what's the hours on that machine?
See, I think that's the part that I'm so glad to hear you explain that. Tracking the equipment, that's probably the easy part, right?
Yep.
I can throw an air tag on my suitcase and watch it travel through the airport from, but where the power in this is the data that you're capturing. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the data that enables the workflows. So if I take, for example, like a dispatch event, right? Every superintendent's probably getting 20 phone calls a minute on where things are going, or they're requesting to that dispatcher, hey, I need this for my next 2-week look ahead. But if the data can say, hey, this asset has lower utilization, it just got its preventative maintenance done, versus the one that's high utilization that might be coming up for maintenance, which one are you going to pick to the job? And a lot of times you have to have multiple phone calls to get that information versus, a system telling you that.
Wow. So how did you start? I want to hear that story. You're out there on the job. You've identified this issue.
Yep.
You feel like it's an issue that you're not the only one experiencing. So what was the next step?
Yeah, and in our construction company, Conti, we've tried, it wasn't just this idea. It was like, hey, how can we track things? We were using OEM telematics. We etched our own QR codes on things. We tried it almost 4 or 5 times across the life of our company. But really started on just talking to a lot of contractors, right? So anytime I think in entrepreneurship and idea, you can have what's in your own mind, which usually is wrong. So you have to go out and validate that. And I just drove around actually to a lot of contractors in the Carolinas and talked about it because that's where I was living at the time. And had a conversation with family business. I think this is something we can build for us, and also then could be, marketed for the industry. So it started small.
So you pitched the idea internally.
Yep.
And they said, okay.
Yep.
And then you just hit the road. You got in your car and you went from meeting to meeting and
talking and building a very low cost, almost wireframe version of the product, because software development is not cheap. So you kind of put together what the vision, how it's going to work, and then talk with the different users on, hey, could this be valuable to you at all? Instead of just building it and then hoping it will work. So a lot of different validation and testing and focusing on the industry, right? So as you said before, there's a lot of tech that kind of gets developed and just thrown against the wall versus from the user's back. And I think that's the key in any software industry is go from the user back. Who's the guy in the field who has to click it, take his glove off. He's just like yelling into the phone, it's got to be easy.
Interesting to go out to the field first, ride by a job site, pull in and say, what do you need?
Yep.
How can help us help you? I think that's cool.
I do too. Yeah. And you've got that discovery phase, but you've also got the firsthand experience.
Sure. Yeah.
So when you come back from this road trip and you go back to the main office and you say, all right, here's what I heard. What was that report?
Well, the report was there's a lot of stuff to do, and it's always siloed, right? So the easiest thing for us to start at the time was more small tool management because it didn't require the cellular technology, which is a much bigger lift. So we actually started marketplace small tools and worked our way up to full asset management. And the feedback was, hey, the only way I'll really adopt this is if I can cover everything. So that was like, okay, that's actually a lot of work. And then we went to basically work for 3 years on the product. So we went very slow with the product development before we started rolling out to the industry.
When you say small tools,
yep.
How small?
Anything under like $500 is a threshold.
Okay.
Right? So you may want to get an impact wrench or a welder or things like that.
So,
not like
contractors are saying these things we're losing these things. They're either walking off the job somewhere or we've misplaced them. They're sitting in the woods, like you said.
Yeah.
That was your entry point. That wasn't necessarily what you wanted to do, but that was your ability to get your foot in the door and start showing them how you could solve some of the other issues.
Yep. Yeah. When we started, we were just putting QR codes like on bucket trucks.
Wow.
People were scanning that and putting their maintenance, and then more and more we're like, okay, the more automated you can make it, the better. So we added Bluetooth beacons, then we added fleet management, then we added, equipment management.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
The technology, and I want to hear your thoughts about this because you've been in the industry a while. You've heard your dad and his dad talk about some of the challenges that we've experienced as an industry over the last 120 years almost for you guys. How are you seeing technology change the landscape of construction?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. I think in a lot of times, in construction technology, it used to be pretty big ERPs, right?
Yep.
And they were just, construction was a vertical, and you would buy these massive suites that wasn't very purposeful for the contractor. I'm seeing a lot of companies now develop almost construction back products. And I think that's getting higher adoption. The biggest thing is there's a bunch of studies. There's a famous McKinsey study where construction is one of the second lowest laggards on adapting tech, right? It's like hunting and then construction.
And then construction.
So and that's been quoted a bunch of times, but I don't think that's construction's fault, right? I think at its core, contractors are innovators, whether that's how we're, adding a different custom attachment to machine, a different value add approach on a project. So we're entrepreneurial, like in nature. Like construction is always changing. That's what's fun about it, right?
Yeah.
You want to make it repeatable, but that's probably not the case because there's always something on a job you have to solve.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times almost tech failed construction a little bit in that we were trying to create, generic things to a very adoptive industry versus now products that are hyper-focused on it, and because it's complex and things are moving. So to directly answer your question, how is it impacting? I think it's having a higher impact now because of focus. And if you can focus, you can kind of work from the user back.
That's interesting, especially hearing you say that you're seeing a shift from these contractors that have gone all in on these big suites, but they're starting to identify programs and tools that will help them with specific issues that you're saying. Does your product, is it integrated with all these other, that's one of the issues we face is that we've got so many things and one won't talk to the other.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it almost swung. You have big ERPs, then you have a million little products, right? And now I'm seeing like one project delivery system, war equipment fleet management, one major accounting system, and get those, major things working together. It has to integrate, right? You don't want to be double entering 25 times. That's something I know none of us would like to do. So, no, it's super important.
Well, I'm sure that's been a challenge too. I mean, you got so many there and so many dealers, equipment manufacturers, and I imagine you're having to work with all of them to create those integrations.
Yeah, and luckily there's been some standards that come out, right? So the Association of Equipment Management Professionals worked on an ISO spec that a lot of the OEMs actually write to that can push the data into our platform. So there are starting to be some standards out there, which I think is great for contractors.
Cool. So the days of two contractors standing out in the field going, "Where's that at?" I don't know. I saw it the other day.
You ever heard that conversation?
Oh God, yeah, all the time. I saw it. I know I saw it. I don't know where I saw it at though.
Yeah.
Maybe it's over here, and then you end up wasting.
Yeah, we've recovered some pretty
money.
fun, hot pursuits when things get lost.
Tell us some of that. I want to hear that story. Give me one of your best stories on that one, Austin.
Yeah, and I had some safety stories too, which I think you want to know about.
Oh yeah,
with safety.
Yeah.
So we had a contractor in Florida, and they were actually demoing our product, and they only put 2 trackers on, right? The fleet of about 400 pieces of equipment. So large size, self-performed civil contractor down in Miami area. And the demo was going well, and it's like a Saturday morning, like at 6 o'clock, I get a call from the equipment manager. Goes, "Hey Austin, like this just got stolen. Can we track it?" And I'm like, "Awesome, let's go!" Right? We're in hot pursuit. So we took the tracker. And we found that wasn't a pretty smart thief because he stole the only 2 pieces with the tracker on during the demo phase, and it was a mini excavator, and they brought it back into the mangroves. And we had the police call it, boom, found it, but actually found that this thief, it was like a hidden yard. So this is where he was housing equipment from contractors all along the area. So it turned out to be like a big,
this was a ring.
So
it's kind of like we were like in cops. It felt cool.
That's good. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Can you imagine this dude going down the street in the skid steer and them chasing him and all the police cars coming? This could be a series right here.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's I want to go back to the data side of it because my brain, I can process the tracking. I can process, being able to do that. The extracting the data and finding information that allows contractors to make business decisions that improve efficiency, productivity, and profitability.
Sure.
Do you have examples of how your product has done that?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll take from a superintendent's point of view. So I think utilization is a really important metric that we measure live. So every previous shift, week to date, month to date, project to date, we're recording the runtime by what was projected in the project. And then we're also according the idle time coming directly from the ECU of the machine. And I know in a lot of companies, people are always requesting, and there can be sometimes a culture of hoarding, right? Hey, I need that piece, but I'm not going to give it up because I might need it because I'm going to make schedule on here, which is natural and that makes sense. It's not a bad thing. But if that's happening across, lots of jobs, you guys plus 40 jobs, maybe you did an excess rental that you didn't need, right? Or maybe that excess rental happened on, 10 jobs, so your cost of equipment's going up. So if you really understand utilization and that data is public to not only the management but all the field team, then you're going to share your assets more appropriately, and you might be able to do more with less, or on a positive side, project that, hey, we're going to buy some pieces because we're actually overutilized and we're getting so much work. So I think utilization is a key metric for ops and equipment management.
I'm curious, in your experience, I would imagine most situations were underutilized.
Yeah, so a funny statistic, last year we measured when people have signed up and tracked their assets or just started to get data on their assets, how many things were they not getting data on? Mm-hmm. And it's actually 21%. So from time of starting to put things on versus growth of their fleet, it's 21%. So you can go backwards to say, okay, was 20% of their fleet underutilized?
Wow. That's real dollars.
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of them.
Austin, this is tech space. This is new. Is this new for you? I mean, were you always interested in that space?
Yeah, I always loved tech.
Yeah.
I love different process change, and IoT, so Internet of Things, has been a buzzword. I was just fascinated on that, whether that's having a refrigerator tell you how cold it is, or what's the health of your D6 dozer. I just thought that was so interesting. So.
This is, it's pretty competitive space too, right? Are you seeing a lot of people that are trying to do similar things? And then how has Tenna separated themselves from everyone else that's trying to do it?
Yeah. Again, like GPS is not, new. I think there's been a lot of players in the fleet management space, whether that's, tracking trucks for Walmart or, just general over-the-road trucking's been around for a while. But where we differentiate ourselves, there really is not an operations platform for equipment fleet management for contractors. And that's our main differentiator, because the beauty in software is you can build anything, right? It is so cool to invent and see some idea or screen come to life and people using it.
Right.
But what you build, does it actually matter? That's the key question. Right? Yeah. So.
Is it a really competitive space?
It is, but we're not seeing a ton of competitors just for contractors. Yeah. We're one of the players there.
So how does that first meeting go with Jim Bob's, grading? When you go into the office, because you said earlier that construction is one of the last ones to adopt the technology of any industry. We're kind of late to the party.
Yeah.
How does that meeting go? How do you pitch this thing to someone in the business?
Yeah. 50% of people are still on whiteboards. So, we like to show up. These aren't Zoom meetings on, hey, let me show you what you got.
Yeah.
It's come in to your equipment manager. How have you been doing it? Where are your pain points? And we see, hey, we help with one or two things, right? And it's also important, like if it's not a match, like if we can't add value to you, then we're not going to be a good partner. So I think it's more about listening and making sure the company's at a right time to adopt tech, and they have the right people in place that can do it, versus like, hey, you just need to track your equipment because that's what you should do. So it's very much about process and the end game of people actually using it, right? So, but first meetings, walking into a bunch of shops, like that's what I do. That's what our team does. We'll almost like someone in equipment rolls up, just can we have a conversation? Yep.
Two things I love about what you just said there, and I hope our younger construction professionals are listening to. Number one, you showed up.
Yep.
You went to the office and you met in person. You didn't set up the Zoom call. You got face to face with the business decision makers, and then number two, you listened. You sat down and you said, "What are your issues? What are your problems?" And then you figured out how you could help them solve some of their issues through that process.
Yep.
I love the approach.
Yeah, I do too. And so instead of just building something and going sell it, you went and talked to everybody and built it around what they told you, what they needed.
Yep.
And that's the way to do it, you know.
Have you found that your experience has helped you in those conversations, your construction experience? You're able to speak the lingo. You're able to talk their language.
It's a language, right?
Yeah.
So you need to know what this equipment is. And you have to have some empathy for the problems, right? Versus, oh, what do you mean you're still managing things on a whiteboard? Well, it's because there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's how we've done it, and it's worked actually. We've been around for 50 years making money, so something's working right.
Well,
so,
I can tell you right now, if you walk into our office, we got whiteboards covered up right now. Is it the best way?
I still like whiteboards, right?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the best way or not, but you're right. I mean, it's. But what it does tell you is that everyone's dealing with the same issue.
Yeah, and I think like with tech, tech is a tool, right? It's not magic. So it's just like, we have so many tools in construction and machines. It's just a great tool for people to do their job. And I think that's versus, hey, tech's just going to come in and solve a problem. It's a complement.
Absolutely. No, it helps on all the things that we're trying to do, the efficiency, productivity, and, making business decisions on whether or not to buy equipment, lease equipment. Your point, do we have the right size fleet for the work that we've got in front of us?
Yep.
But you can't do it if you don't have the data.
Yep.
You've got to have the data.
In real time. You can't have
real time.
Old data.
Did you run into any opposition out there? The old honorary construction guy that, we don't.
Oh, yeah.
Run into that a good bit. Did you?
Every day, yeah. So,
Yeah.
But I think that's just a reaction to some change, right?
That's part of it. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So but that's the fun part, right? If you can take that guy's like, hey, there's no way I'll ever do this.
Change his mind.
I still have a flip phone, don't even give me a smartphone. And, that person out there, and if they can get it and, really embrace it, then you have the kind of the win.
If you can sell Bam Bam, you can sell anybody. If you can get Bam Bam to buy in on asset management technology platform,
yes, absolutely.
You have done it.
Yep. How big is Tenna?
So Tenna is around 125 people, around 350 contractors around the U.S.
Wow.
100,000 things tracked.
Okay.
And we add about 4 contractors a week. So
good.
High growth company, but I think it's just because of our focus, and we got a great team. Similar, you guys put a lot on culture. It's very important for us, and that makes it just fun to grow. So.
Are these contractors managing their own platforms and their own? They see all their data? They don't have to call in and say, "Hey, I need a report for this," or "I need a report for this," or "I need you to track this asset." They've got that at their
it's
fingertips.
all it's mobile as well, so it's unlimited. Everybody can use the system. We want everybody to get the data.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Austin, what a fantastic story, man. You should. How long has this been?
So, I started it in 2015. Was like the ideas on the job sites, and then we really kind of launched the product that people use today in 2019. So, these are not like quick. Things take time to get them right. And I think that's important for quality. So keep on going.
What are you excited about with Tenna? What's happening right now that you're excited about?
We're always developing new product like each month, and that's the invention of it. Growing our customer support and also sales organization. So really, I think just great blocking and tackling.
Yeah, there you go.
I like to say, we're going to invent a new satellite product or a new network tomorrow. No, there's a lot of stuff coming out, and the tech's moving so quick that can we just execute for our partners and customers each day. So let's keep it simple, work hard.
It sounds like a pretty fun gig. You get to go in and solve problems through some pretty cool technology. When you did your road tour, and you got on the road and you went around and you were talking to contractors about what are you experiencing, what are your issues, what else did you hear beyond the technology and beyond the asset management part of it? What other issues are people dealing with out in the industry right now?
Labor,
absolutely
number one. I find at least across the country, because we're we're bounced around the country in Canada. It's the number one thing we hear. So have a lot of work. The backlog is strong, but looking for talent from the younger generation coming up. So that seems to be on everybody's mind.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty consistent.
Yeah, so across the board.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Finding people seems to be a lot of greenfield work as well. So it's not just projects of redoing and rehabs. A lot of new development happening. So that's great. I mean, that's great for the industry, but you need the people to build it. Right? Have you been able to solve that problem?
No. I could just tell you what your dozer's doing.
Well, to that point though, utilization. It tells you, like, do I really need 5 pieces of equipment out here, or can I do it with 3?
Yeah, I think efficiency in general is going to help with the labor issue. That's why tech is being adopted more. But I think there's still a need for good training and for individuals to come into the industry, and because it is a fun place to work, and impactful.
You use the word fun. You seem like you're having fun with this, Austin. You seem like you're having fun. Do you love the tech side or the construction side of this equation more?
Ooh, that's a good question. I love having tech in the construction industry. I don't think I'd want to do necessarily. I don't think about tech outside of it.
Right.
Like I said before, I love, I'm a high energy person, right? I like to be moving, and that's what made construction just really satisfying. And with tech, you can always kind of be creating something new, innovating something new, and doing that for an industry that I love is really gratifying. It's
exciting. Yeah. And I think it's exciting for what we found, the next generation of construction professionals. They want to see that.
And they want to use tech too, right?
They want to use tech.
And they want it consistent as they learn programs. So,
well, tell me about this. So your approach to this whole thing has been very collaborative.
Yep.
Why has that been important to you, and where did that come from? How did you know that was the way to build this?
Probably just my time at my family company. I think team first especially is the way good contractors operate. PMs and supers doing a site walk together each day and talking through the problems and pre-planning. That communication, as we talked about earlier, communication training that you guys do. I think if you're operating a place where it's just your idea and it's just your ego to make it happen, you're probably not going to get the facts on how to make the right decision. So it's almost not. I think it's the only way to work the right way, and it also just creates good buy-in and lots of ideas from around the company. Like one of the things we like to do is the bucket attachments. That came from a lead mechanic that was at our construction company that came over to our tech company. It was his idea. He's like, hey, I think this weld will be better for our customers. So it comes anywhere within the company.
Yeah, I love that. There's your soundbite right there. We need to get that was perfectly said.
Yeah, but tee them up.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us on the podcast today. Is there anything else that you want to say that we didn't get to, that we didn't cover today?
You guys had a question about safety stories, right?
Rusty,
you wanted some stories, so I tried to think of 2 before I came. And I thought about just 2, and it doesn't apply to equipment at all. This is just construction experience. So my most interesting and then most scary safety meeting. I'll go on. So my most interesting was when I was working abroad in West Africa. We had crews from all different kind of places. And it was one of the only places that they started the safety meetings with a prayer, but they would alternate with the different religions. So it's really interesting to have one leader do prayer one day, the one leader do the prayer the other day. And it was just one of the more impactful safety programs I was ever in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the worst one was I was running a trucking crew doing earthwork, and there was an individual not very happy that day, so he pulled a snake on me.
Wow.
Literally.
It was a dead snake, but it was that was pretty scary. So
it absolutely
I had to refrain myself from
if it was
that would have been it, right?
That's it. That would have been it.
That would have been a bad day for that.
I would not. Yeah.
So I do not like snakes. I am scared of snakes.
I am too.
But things happen.
I'm with you on that. Yes, sir.
All right.
That is wild. That is what is the most? One last question. Just hit me. What is the thing most likely to walk off the job?
Oh,
What is the piece of equipment or asset that you find?
I think assets that get lost, like assets get lost, are more the attachments. That's what we see. Like everybody always, like when I talk about losing attachments, no one's like, oh yeah, I've never lost an attachment. Like, I have not heard that comment once. But I think any of the small tools are easy. Yeah, you know, because that's, you know, concrete saw, for example, worth a good amount of money, easy to move off.
Yeah. And then probably the next thing would be the mini X's.
Yeah, skid steers for like
yeah.
actual machines. I think skid steers are the highest, right?
Okay.
So,
do you miss being out on the project?
I still get to be out on the project, so I'm out with the customers all the time, and you know, walking their yards. And one of the most satisfying things is there's so many good contractors in the U.S. You know, kind of live in your own world when you're working in one company, but getting to travel to the U.S., there's so much talent and great companies out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Somebody asked me the other day why I love construction. And I said, it's the people.
No, absolutely.
You won't find an industry with better people than the construction industry.
Salt of the earth.
Salt of the earth. Yep.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what you guys have coming up. I'm excited to keep learning more about your products. And if there's anything that we can do for you, I hope you'll reach out. But it's been a pleasure to have you in here telling your story today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.